I'm Michael Krigsman, an industry analyst and the host of CXOTalk. And I'm speaking with Todd Edman, who is CEO of Waitrainer. And Waitrainer is trying to disrupt parts of the restaurant business.
Yeah, so what we're trying to do is help restaurants simplify their training. And so we're helping facilitate the movement of restaurants from like a traditional training manual, like a binder, and shadow training, and move them onto an online training platform so employees can train on the fundamentals of the restaurants on their smartphone.
So you're going from paper-based manuals to being a software as a service company.
Yep, that's correct.
Data is a crucial component. So tell us about your marketing. Let's begin there.
Sure. So we're in a place where it's a challenge because a lot of the people who are looking for training, right, and to train in a restaurant are not looking for an online training solution because we're new, right? So people aren't thinking to themselves, gosh, there has to be some online tool to do this. Where do I find it? It's more like, I'd like to train my staff on X, Y, or Z. On this one thing, we need help. And so our challenge is, how do we market to someone where we're providing a solution that isn't what they're looking for, but that is the solution to their problem, right? And so we have to look at a lot of the data and look at our messaging and really try and match those two things up. What are people looking for, and how do we get them to think about us as that solution? That's
really interesting. So you have a solution to a problem, and because it's new, people don't think about it. What kind of data are you using when you say match data to your marketing message? What does that mean? Elaborate on that.
Right. So, when you have content on your website, you can see what people are looking at. So you have blog articles and whatnot, and then you work with other people to syndicate those out, right? And other content partners and stuff like that. And then you sort of see what stuff naturally rises to the top in that. And then you look at that messaging and say, what was that person looking for? And what that is, that thing that they were looking for, does that match one of our value propositions? And if it does, how do we direct them to it? And how do we match messaging about our products and our marketing, our solutions, right, and our value proposition to the thing that they were looking for? So they can go, oh, maybe that's something that could help us.
Can you give us a very concrete example? I think that will help us understand it.
Yeah, sure. So one of the things we got a ton of traffic on was opening a steakhouse, right? And so lots and lots of people were opening a steakhouse. I'm thinking about opening a steakhouse, not really interesting to us, but I'm opening a second or third location, really interesting to us. So we kind of wrote a blog article that paired in with that, and then we delivered email marketing, right, to that sort of audience that was engaged with that match that message. If you're opening your second location or third location of a restaurant, you want to focus on training so you get that consistency. And then, boom, we could see a percentage of those people that converted became good leads.
So these were people that arrived on your website through, say, searches or through Google Adwords?
Right. Yep. Searches or Google Adwords, content partners remarketing our stuff that we work with, or even, once we figured out that was the target, then we could look at certain segments like steakhouses, multi-location steakhouses, and then we could target them.
What kind of tools are you using to accomplish all of this, to do all of this slicing and dicing and collection and analysis?
Yeah, so we use Google Analytics. It's really heavily on that. We do a lot of testing with Google AdWords about different search terms and looking at search volume. We use MailChimp a lot to manage kind of our entry-level, brand new, top-of-the-funnel campaigns. But then to kind of coalesce that data and really chew on it, we use Acton. And then that Acton really kind of becomes the hub for all those others. And it really allows us to kind of segment lists and see what percentages of lists are digesting what information. When we look at kind of creating our marketing personas, we use those marketing personas of different types of people who've been in the restaurant business before, people who are running a multi-location chain, people who have run one restaurant for a really long time, family-owned restaurants. And we kind of take those personas and then can create different automated campaigns and act on around those personas and then track their activity on the website.
You say that it's the hub. Why do you say that?
To me, email in marketing is the ground game. Right? That's running the football. If you don't have that down, it's, I think, really hard to be successful. And so when you look at any sort of hub for what we'll do for our data, it's going to be, for me and any company I do, it's going to be email marketing based. And Act On really allows us to kind of spin up those campaigns, those automated campaigns, and then continue to tweak and adjust to messaging and see, this particular leg of the automation campaign got this much better percentage of opens with that tagline, matching that customer persona. And allows us kind of to tweak and measure and can continue to adjust and optimize.
So this is the core of your process, and then you're constantly iterating on this same process, refining over and over again.
Yep. And, we kind of, you start going, okay, well, we got to get people warmed up into a product. We need to drive people into leads as quickly as we can. So we want to take people and jam them into the funnel quick, right? When you start, because you want initial traction. And then it becomes more about optimizing and pushing people farther down the funnel. Right. And so as we kind of go through and look at the effectiveness of the campaigns, we evaluate which segments aren't coming down the funnel, which segments aren't converting to leads, what segments aren't converting to closes. Is that because our value proposition doesn't match, or is it because our marketing messaging isn't correct and we're not, properly evaluating our funnel?
And then you obviously take, can we say, remedial steps. You look, see what's working, what's not, and then how do we tweak it?
Yeah, and we do A/B testing too. So that's really helpful because time of year, the last 2 weeks, right? So it's July-ish right now, August, but the last couple of weeks in July are dead in the restaurant business because after 4th of July, a lot of restaurateurs take their summer vacations now. And so, when you start looking at data for that, if you tested an email campaign now, it would perform wildly differently than when you tried in 2 weeks. So A/B testing, I think, is really important to kind of be able to compare apples to apples.
And what about the metrics? Do you have specific metrics for success that you're looking at, or is it just the results of, test A is better than test B?
Of course, there's opens, right? And then there's click-throughs. And then depending on where they are in the funnel, right? If they're way down funnel, you want to see those click-throughs, you want those to be high, right? If they're way up funnel, you want opens and just some sort of engagement. And so, then you do your A/B testing to see, okay, well, can we improve in the click-throughs on this particular segment? Or can we improve on engagement in that particular segment, right? And so you kind of look at that. Can we take people who've never been on the website before and get them to go there? And so it just depends on where they are in the funnel and which automation campaign they're in and, how we work to push them down there.
And finally, what are your future plans for marketing and your use of personas and customer journeys?
Yeah. So when I think about the nice thing about email marketing and digital marketing, right, is if you're measuring it all, if you have something like a good tool to be able to measure on-site engagement in email marketing and AdWords and roll it all up and get a good picture of your customer, you can look at your industry standard reports, like what's the average return to SMBs in the hospitality space for email campaigns. And then you can look at your numbers and kind of start to think, okay, my customer acquisition cost is like X for email marketing. And then you look at, okay, what will imprint be for me? And you can look at some industry standards and you can kind of get a pretty good idea of what it looks like. So you're like, okay, I'm going to enter the market. I'm going to do email marketing and AdWords. And then I'm going to do some print and I'm going to do some trade shows and see if those numbers across the industry, right, start to line up. And if they do, it really gives you an ideal, like, okay, we can grow really, really fast. Our first is going to be email marketing. Our next is going to be trade shows because that looks like, based on the industry, it should be really effective for us. It kind of lets you put together your whole go-to-market strategy.
Okay. Todd Edman from Waitrainer. Thank you so much for speaking with us today.
No problem, Michael. Thank you.